Lightning, they got some hail, pea-sized hail down through there, and
tons of
rain for a good bit
tons
too.
And tons of rain.
Yeah, really heavy. Even from the Lake Charles radar, you could tell that it was pretty nasty.
How is it today? It doesn't seem to be as foggy, at least here in the city.
No, and the dense fog advisories, there are still some up, but they are hugging the interstate a little closer than they were yesterday. Temperatures right now are still sitting in the 70s in Lafayette. It's still soupy feeling outside, and it's still very warm. We're going to get into the forecast in a little bit better detail. We'll have all that coming up as we go through the rest of the morning.
Good morning, Acadiana. I'm Abby Breidenbach. Right now, the search for the driver of a stolen vehicle from Iberville Parish is on hold. Lafayette police say there was a high-speed chase across the basin from Iberville, ending in a crash at Louisiana Avenue at East Alexander Street. A female passenger is under arrest. A spokesperson from the police department says they cannot confirm if the driver is in custody.
Thanks for that, Abby. Well, looking ahead to next month, Crowley voters will decide whether or not they want to add Med Express as a second ambulance service in the city. Right now, the city only has a contract with Acadian, but they say at times there aren't enough ambulances to meet the need of the city.
Acadian Ambulance is testing their 100 defibrillators for possible issues. This after the FDA said LifePak 15 customers may have devices that lock up after the shock is delivered. Acadian officials say they haven't had any issues with the units, but are still testing to make sure they work properly.
From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, here's Daniel's True View forecast.
Well, temperatures in the 70s right now in Lafayette. New Iberia, it's about 67, upper 60s down over towards Alexandria. A little fog out there, but it is nowhere near what it has been the last few days. It's not even close to the way it was yesterday. But still, though, you are going to want to give yourself a little bit of extra time. Visibility is still down below 2 miles out over at the airport. A little bit more of a wind today, which has kind of kept it at bay. But the dew points are certainly high enough to see fog at about 69 degrees, 70 degrees for your temperatures right now. A lot of clouds out there. We're going to repeat this forecast that we've had the last few days again for today. I think the rain chances are a little less. Not going to see the heavier downpours that we've seen down along the coastline the last few days. But again, a lot of clouds still out there and a little patchy sunshine by the afternoon. As I mentioned, the dense fog advisory hugs the interstate a little closer today, mostly along the I-10 corridor, out over towards the east, the North Shore, and then out over towards New Orleans with an advisory up until about 10 o'clock. Down along the coastline, that's going to exist as well. So make sure that you do take your time, because there is a little bit of fog out there, and the visibility in some areas really not the best. It's just not quite as blanketing as it was yesterday. We had all the numbers basically coming in below a mile. We're at a half mile in Abbeville right now, so quite thick down towards the coast. Mile and 3/4 in Lafayette, out over towards Lake Charles. Things do look a little bit better. So if you're westbound this morning, you'll be able to get out of it a little easier. It's a little patchier than it has been the last few days. That being said, we still have a few hours where it's going to thicken up, and I would imagine that we see these numbers come down a little bit as we go through the rest of the morning. It's 78 degrees for your high today. Pretty familiar looking forecast. Mostly cloudy through the morning, patchy sunshine by the afternoon. We'll go 20% on your rain chances for today. Winds out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. We finally get some changes by tomorrow, and the changes not going to arrive till tomorrow evening. 5, 6 o'clock, we got some rainfall that's going to move through. We'll talk about the rain chances in greater detail coming up here at the top of the hour. Guys?
Thanks, Daniel. Well, during last night's State of the Union, President Trump repeatedly called for unity while doubling down on his immigration stance.
For nearly an hour and a half, the president rejected partisan politics and touted economic improvements, and once again pushed for his border wall amid a looming shutdown deadline. ABC's Mona Kassar-Abdi is in Washington with more.
To periodic chants of USA, the president began his second State of the Union address.
That sounds so good.
Largely sticking to script, for an hour and a half, the president delivered his message to a divided Congress with his greatest political adversary, Nancy Pelosi, over his shoulder.
Together we can break decades of political stalemate.
Pelosi and many other Democratic female lawmakers sporting white as an ode to the suffrage movement, several even erupting in cheer when President Trump celebrated the amount of women in Congress. The president also garnering collective applause for his call to end revenge politics.
We must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution.
But the conciliatory tone quickly dwindled soon after Trump took aim at the special counsel's Russia investigation.
If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation.
And any hopes of newfound unity came to a halt as Trump maintained his hardline immigration stance in the face of another possible shutdown.
Simply put, walls work and walls save lives.
Offering the Democratic rebuttal was former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams.
The shutdown was a stunt, engineered by the President of the United States.
But as she criticized the president, she too hoped to find common ground.
And Trump says he wants people to come into the U.S. in the largest numbers ever legally. But we found that the president actually set the lowest cap in history for the refugee assistance program. Monaco Sarabdi, ABC News, Washington.
And this morning, we're hearing reaction to the president's speech from members of Louisiana's congressional delegation. District 3 Representative Clay Higgins says he hopes the speech inspires members of both parties to work together.
And I'm prayerful that his message of a cooperative, bipartisan effort has touched the hearts of enough Americans that we can get past this division and vitriol.
Meanwhile, Senator Bill Cassidy echoed the president's message on, quote, choosing greatness for America. Cassidy says that he's hopeful that Congress can work together on issues like border security.
The president's theme was choosing greatness. I think we've chosen greatness with the economic policies that we have the record low unemployment for veterans, for people of color, for high school dropouts, for women, an economy that's been growing as it hasn't for the previous 8 years before this president. And I really like how the president is concerned about surprise medical billing and lowering the cost of medications. The kitchen table issue, I as a physician care deeply about it because I know that can be the difference between health or not. Then the president refers to infrastructure. That should be an area of common ground between Republicans and Democrats. We certainly need that program. And I'm hoping that the success of the economy, the emphasis upon medications and the infrastructure will allow some movement on securing our southern border.
And 4th District Representative Mike Johnson also emphasized action on the president's proposed border wall in his response to the State of the